it, thinking it would only take a couple weeks. Well, it took us a year, because once we got into the book, I said, we have certain portions that are not, there's just too many questions not answered for the reader. So, but a year later, a little over a year, we finally got it out, and we kind of basically almost self-published it. So that's what we have here today. So Hans Meyer went into the war when he was only 17 years old in 1944. So he was 12 years old when the war started. Hans grew up in between the two wars, and in Germany it was a time of turmoil and stress. The Reparations Act from the victory side placed on the Germans put a tremendous strain on the economy, on the people of Germany, and then they just didn't have much way of doing much, and so they were taking out some of their frustrations just fighting in the streets, one gang against another gang, one union against another union. So it was a pretty trying time. Also, they had to pay for some of the cost of World War I. And so they started printing money when they didn't really have enough of goods to exchange. And so inflation started going up. And just to tell you how much inflation went up during those time frames. In 1922, $1 American bought 191 Deutschmarks. Okay? In 1923, the next year, it wasn't 191 Deutschmarks. It was 17,972 Deutschmarks to make $1. Look at the inflation. So if you were living on any kind of basic subsistence economy, all of a sudden it wasn't worth anything. Prices were going up higher too, because just the money was being printed. In January, $1, you had to have 110,000 Deutschmarks to make $1. In October, it went up to 26,000, and in November, it took for $1 4 trillion, actually over 4 trillion Deutschmarks. Well, they couldn't even print the money that fast. What they did, they had a stamp, and if you had 1,000 Deutschmark, they'd stamp the thing over top. It's now worth 10,000, and then you would come back a couple of days later or a couple of months later. The 10,000, well, now it's worth $1 million. They just couldn't print the money that fast. It was just terrible. So trying to buy anything, people would get paid sometimes by the hour, so they could run out and buy a loaf of bread before, in the afternoon, they couldn't be able to buy it. So it's very, very trying times. Hans grew up in this area here. Here's Berlin, so just west of Berlin is Brandenburg, and that's primarily where he grew up. He did spend some time over in Braunschweig, a little further west, but most of the time was up in the Brandenburg area growing up. Now, while he was growing up, he joined the Hitler Youth. And one of the things that they could do in the Hitler Youth, they learned to fly. They learned to fly gliders. So that was his first introduction to aviation, flying gliders. At the same time, he had to make a choice whether going the academic route in school or going to the technical school, so he went to the technical side. So as part of his studies, he would go and was an apprentice at a factory shop, working to work with metal and welding and those kinds of things. But he did progress pretty well in the flying club. And the club that he was in, the Hitler Youth thing, was still recognized by the International Gliders Association. They had to have certain requirements to make that international requirement. And he got his first and second and finally class as third, class C rating, which was the best. And it's the same thing that's used today. So if you go inside, you could see the pins It's a blue pin with the 3 silver birds wings on it. So that he had earned that. Now, in 1944, the good fortune of the tide had turned, and Germany was very desperate now, and they were kind of doing everything they could to try to hold on. The large gains that they had made in the Far Eastern Front were retaken back again by the Russians, and the Russians were on the move. They were moving westward. And those days in 44, still German industry could make a lot of airplanes. They could actually build things. A lot of them were built underground. Parts were brought up, they were put in hangars, portable hangars, assembled, and then flown out. The more would come in, they were quickly assembled and flown out. And just to show you, in 1943, remember, Germany has now experienced a lot of bombing from the Allies, both coming up through Italy and coming over from England. But still in 1943, they were able to build over 15,000 fighters. In 1944, they were able to build over 19,000 fighters. This is not counting the other aircraft they were making. However, where do you think the shortage lies? In pilots. They just didn't have enough pilots. So somebody said, up at headquarters, we got some youths that know how to fly gliders. Well, that ought to be harder to fly than a plane like this that's got a propeller. We'll take all these glider pilots and make them fighter pilots. And they gave Hans the opportunity to do that. He said, yes, that was my dream, to always be a fighter pilot. As a little kid, to fly airplanes. And if any of you here have ever flown airplanes, once you get this thrill and under your belt, boy, it is the most exhilarating thing you could ever do. It is nothing like flying. And he had the opportunity. Well, back in those days, normally if you just went into the military, it took them a little over a year to get through basic training, then advanced training, and get into a fleet airplane, get into your fighter aircraft and take off. They didn't have that time. They basically said, he already knows how to fly a glider. We'll just put him in a plane with a prop and give him a few lessons, and away you go. You know, so probably in about 10 weeks, he said, you're qualified. Well, let me tell you how desperate they were on some of the things. Now, when in the Navy, and I was in the Navy, when we do air-to-air gunnery, we have an airplane moving along, and about 1,500 feet to 2,500 feet behind it is a banner. And you get up on a place called a perch, and you come down, and you actually shoot live ammo at that banner, and then you peel off, and you go up around, and you shoot at it again. And if there are 4 planes doing this, 3 of them have different colors painted on their bullets, so they could see what bullets hit the banner and which ones didn't. So, what kind of air-to-air gunnery did Hans get? They put him in an airplane. They jacked up the tail like that. They said, climb in the cockpit. Okay, it's got a few rounds in the gun. This is what you do. You squeeze the trigger. Now, see this profile over here? It's too small. The airplane's out of range. You don't shoot. Okay, see this profile here? It's a little bit bigger. The plane's getting closer. You don't shoot yet. When it got close enough, they said, okay, this is how close, this is what it looks like. Shoot. Brrr. Okay, you're qualified. Next phase. It's pretty desperate. But he did get through. He did get through flying. And he made it on to his first squadron. Now, he's kind of working his way to the front, but he did finally get to the front, and he got to his first squadron called the Greenhearts. And if you saw a picture in there, there's a picture of him flying an ME-109, similar to this one, with the Greenhearts. So I'm going to read a little bit now about some of his life experiences in that squadron. Mississippi. This comes from the book here. It's called The Eastern Front. I finally received orders, and I joined my first combat unit. Jagdgeschwader 54, the Green Hearts. Painted on the fuselage was the squadron symbol, a green heart. We were located very near the Eastern Front, not far from the town of Bernucci. It was on my third mission when I got my first shoot down. We had launched as a group of four. Four aircraft comprised a swarm, much like a division in the U.S. Air Force. And we immediately turned east to pursue Russian aircraft reported at the front. When we caught sight of two of them, they were low at our 10 o'clock position. So if you're flying this way, you know, here's the 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock, so they're low at its left. And we were in a favorable position. Remember, he's only 17 years old. He's only had a few weeks training. As we got closer, we could identify them as Russian Yakolov, Yak 5s or 7s. They were heading east, flying straight and level in a left echelon formation. The wingman was below and slightly behind his leader. Now, I was called number 5 in our swarm. Maybe that's 4 aircraft. But this day, I was flying with the lead, his wingman. It's called a Kazmarek. My swarm leader called over the radio, Kazmarek, stay with me. We will take these two. The rest of you remain high and cover us. So we accelerated. We made a steep dive downward towards the two aircraft. I was concentrating on the trailman and maneuvered to his 6 o'clock position. That means he's directly behind them. When we leveled off about 80 meters below them, my leader radioed, pull up, get as close as possible. I pulled up and did not look into my gun sight until the Yak was in full view of my windscreen. I pulled back on the throttle and started firing. Because of my overtake speed, the Yak seemed to be rushing at me. So you see, he's coming down, and he's picking up speed, and now he's coming up, so things are happening pretty quick. At the very last moment, I pulled upward, climbed to the vertical. This is after he shot. And I went into added power and pulled back on the control stick. So this is what he did. Came down, and now he's going like this. I came so close to the Yak that I just missed it by feet. At the height of my loop, I was inverted and saw through the top of my canopy below me. There they were, going down. Each plane had black smoke trails. I finished my maneuver and turned to join my flight. My swarm leader said, "Well done." Now let me stop for a minute. I was in a fighter squadron, and the fighter guys don't ever let you get the big head. You do something really good, and they're going to go, it's all right. Never get the big head. So he just got his first kill, shot down a Russian Yak. He's coming back. His leader says, "Well done." Says later, the other guys in the flight said, "What were my intentions to do with that loop? Cut the tail off too?" Squadron life was pretty good. We received the best food, we had fresh milk every day, and we always had extra planes available to fly. Told you they were short of pilots. If a pilot stalled his aircraft and had a small crash in a hurry to get airborne, he could quickly run to the flight line and get another one. Our flying group was comprised both of officers and enlisted pilots within our command, but most were enlisted. At this time, Hans was a private. We enlisted pilots did not mix socially with the officers. An officer would usually be the squadron leader, but sometimes a senior enlisted pilot got that assignment when needed. Remember, this was 1944, and we were short of pilots. 2 or 3 swarms, about 12 aircraft, formed a Staffel, similar to a full squadron, and that unit was almost always headed by an officer. We had mechanics to maintain our aircraft, but usually there was only one mechanic for 2 ME-109s. Subsequently, the enlisted pilots did a lot of the work in servicing and maintaining our aircraft, and we became pretty good at it too. Sometimes we would have flight briefings when we were assigned to support a coordinated operation with the Army, but most of our missions were alert launches. Basically, again, they're here on western Poland, The Russians are advancing, so they're just waiting for the call from the Army. We need help here, we need help there, and then they would launch and go in those directions. We would get a call to attack the enemy at a certain location, and off we would fly. We would look for the enemy and shoot them down. We were operating near the city of Königsberg when we received orders that the infantry needed air support. They were needed to take out a specific target so they could advance and control a critical section. We got into our ME-109s quickly, a squadron of 4, and we flew east to the front, and that was not far away. So Königsberg is right up to this area here. So now this is where they are in western Poland, going to this area. We initially thought this would be an easy ground operation. Now I believe sound air tactics involves hitting enemy ground targets from 2 different sides, better for success. But the Russians were well experienced in thwarting such tactics. Their anti-aircraft gunners were already throwing everything at us they had. We planned to coordinate a dual-axis strike, but before we could commence our runs, over the headphones I heard, "Russian aircraft in sight, look east." I made a climbing turn and saw 2 Soviet Illusions, IL-2 Stormoviks, coming towards me. I made the decision to do a head-on attack. You know, when you're 17 years old, you think you're invincible. I mean, I did. I steadied my ME-109 and held one of the aircraft in my gun sight. The closure rate was very fast. When the IL-2 was in range, I started my frontal attack, firing all guns. We continued to close, each firing at the other. At the very last moment, I pulled back hard on the stick and my plane climbed straight up. The G-forces were strong, and I strained to keep control. And then there was a quick jerk on my fuselage. I knew instantly that the IL-2 prop had hit my airplane. I leveled off and looked below for the aircraft. But I also checked my flight control. The plane seemed to be normal. I had good airspeed. As I scanned the sky for the IL-2, the call came over the radio. "Number 5, your IL is shot down." Right at that moment, I saw another IL-2 maneuvering to get behind our swarm leader. I made a diving turn and started an attack, shooting from about 200 meters, hoping to hit the cockpit or at least make him break off his engagement. Shooting at 200 meters is a long range. You want to shoot much closer than that, but he's trying to get the bad guy's attention to stop the attack. I didn't want to wait until I was at close range to fire. Right now, every second counted. I continued closing and flew below the IL and was positioning my plane for reattack when suddenly I was hit. The anti-aircraft fire from below was intense. The infantry had hit their mark. The flying maneuvers of the past couple of minutes started at 2,000 meters, which is about 6,000 feet. Now I was below 1,000, in range of the anti-aircraft. After being hit, I was able to put a few more rounds into the IL-2, at least to stop his attack. But then I realized something was very wrong with my engine. I was losing oil, and my flight controls were not responding correctly. I could raise and lower my nose, so that means he had pitch control, like that. I could raise and lower my nose, I had pitch control, but I could not bank left or right or make much of a turn. The trouble was, I was going east. Then I spotted an open meadow and decided to land. As I descended, the flaps and landing gear were lowered. As soon as the wheels hit the ground, the engine quit. But it was a good landing, and the plane rolled along the field. Just before it was ready to stop, however, I hit a field drainage ditch, and my aircraft flipped to the vertical position, tail high in the air. I scrambled as fast as I could to unstrap myself from the plane and get away, but I had some difficulty. It wasn't that easy. I finally got clear and began running towards the edge of a large stand of trees. I was lucky I wasn't hurt. The woods were about 100 yards away, but I had to cross a small stream, which got my boots full of water. He's got a pair of white boots in there if you want to see what they look like. Running in soaked boots seemed to make them think they were made out of lead. And I almost made it to the edge when Ivan appeared. That's his term for the Russians, Ivan. He was right in front of me, pointing a rifle. By then I was too exhausted to turn and run the opposite direction. And if I tried, I don't think Ivan would have hesitated to shoot me. In the open field, without any cover, I wouldn't have had a chance to escape. My only option was to stand still, put my hands in the air, and resolve to be a POW. So remember now, the Russians are advancing. They're in this portion of Poland, so they're just taking little villages and moving, taking villages and moving on. And now he's captured. So he's taken to a little village where he's being interrogated. And then he's held prisoner. But he escaped. He knows how to use his mind to escape. It's in the book. Okay, let me read another section here. And he finally gets back to his squadron unit. It says, in recognition of my first shoot down, I was promoted to private first class. It was a few weeks later when an officer told me I was the first one in my class to get a confirmed kill. Normally in the military at that time, a pilot was at least one grade higher in rank than his airplane mechanic. In my case, it was the opposite. My mechanic was a corporal. That meant that I was required to salute him, which put him in an awkward position. The mechanic was much older than me, and he had been with the squadron since its inception. He told me once I was the 6th pilot for whom he had been a plane mechanic. All the others did not come back. Later, when we were alone, he said, when it's just you and me, don't salute. I'm here for you, not you for me. And from then on, we were real buddy-buddy. A couple of days after my promotion, I related to him about another shoot-down I had. Our swarm leader was operating behind the Russian line, conducting ground missions when I got hit by infantry gunfire. I was running low on gas also, so I radioed my leader that I had to return to base. It was in the morning and the sun was at my back, going back west. That's when I spotted another Russian yak, low at my 2 o'clock. He's down here. He was crossing right to left, heading south over the German line. I was sure he didn't see me. I pushed my control stick forward, added power, and began immediate attack. Pulling about 20 meters of lead of my gun, when he was in range, I fired. The yak went right into my bullet. It was a quick engagement. The plane went down on the German side as a confirmed kill. When I finished telling this to my mechanic, the corporal smiled and said, Hans, if you keep this up, you will be a general before the year is out. Well, Hans continues on flying the war. He did get shot down a second time. This time he got wounded. He was trying to defend somebody who was under attack, and in the position of target fixation, looking at the other guy, somebody that he didn't see shot at him. Bullets came from the right side and hit part of his leg, and now he's bleeding pretty bad. He flies the airplane though, and he gets back to his base. But the canopy is jammed shut because of the metal being twisted by the bullets. They have to pry it open, get him out, and take him to the hospital. He was hurt pretty bad. While he was in the hospital recuperating, the Russians are advancing. So they have to get everybody to move to another hospital, move to the west. And when I say move, they don't move by trucks. They don't move with jeeps and trailers. They move in carts, box carts, animal carts, anything that could pull. Sometimes people are just pulling for carts. He's not strong enough to walk. He can only walk a short ways, ride a short ways, walk a little bit, ride a little bit. So they're kind of switching positions for those who can partially walk for a little bit. He's recovering in the hospital a few weeks later. They say the front is again advancing. We have to move again. So Hans now is, okay, I can kind of move a little bit. Okay, all of you who could stand up, stand here. All of you who can't, we'll get you on carts. And they moved on. All of you who now can stand up, here's a rifle. You are now in the infantry. If the Russians are coming in that direction, go fight the Russians. So there he is, a brigade of walking wounded, so to speak, and they're going. And that's how he finished the war. After the war, which he did survive, he had to escape a couple other times from the Allies, because he wasn't sure what they were going to do, but he was successful to do that. A great adventure life. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a little bit about Hans's life, a little bit about his story, a little bit about his taste of World War II from his side. And so, now we're going to open it up for questions. So speak real loud. I may have to relay it to Hans, and we will try to get some answers for you. So, you have to hold this real close to you. Yes?
Was he taken prisoner by the Russians?
Were you taken, your first time you were captured by the Russians, you were taken prisoner by the Russians?
Well,
yes, sir. But I escaped.
what about when he became an infantryman?
Pardon me?
Were you captured when you were in the Army? Infantry, no.
Yeah. It was. Oh, no, it was in the Air Force. It was still in the Air Force, yeah. It was, yeah. So, now, I was thinking he never stopped reading here, you know, and nobody would buy the book then. He read the whole book almost here, you know. So, I'm glad he left a little bit over here. So, if somebody has some questions. Yes, ma'am.
What brought you to live here in the United States?
Cedric.
When did you come here? Why did you
Oh, it was 1965. 1965, yeah.
Tell them what you did here.
What?
Your work here. What did you do here?
Oh, when I started here, my English was not so good. So I started as a helper. And so I have to, now the English a little bit better, and the system, this system, I have no idea of the system, I have to learn it too, you know, so I can go later on in my profession. And yeah, when I was a helper, and that was in the distillation company. He distilled old liquid. I don't remember what it was, but the cleaning system used it. So, and there was the welder was sick, and the boss was calling around, you know, to the welding company to get something fixed here. And I heard it. I said, look, I can do it for you. I can fix it. You a helper here? Yeah, okay, forget about it. So after a while, he called around a little bit. He was coming back to me. Are you sure you can do it? I said, yes. Okay, we'll try it. It was something to brazing. Everything was stainless steel and copper anyway. So I did it. He looked me like a hog, you know. And I finished it. Oh, probably he was satisfied with that. And then he was, the next day he's coming back and he said, look, if you can that and that one, you get the job then. Okay, I get the job, and he said, you know, after a couple of weeks, he said, I'll give you a raise, 50 cents a raise. And 1965, it was a lot of money, 50 cents. So I said, okay, fine. The next paycheck, I looked, you know, I said, a little bit more here, but not 65 cents. Everybody thought it's 50 cents in 1 hour. But that there's only 50 cents. So I'm going up to the office, and I talked to the secretary. I said, look, the boss promised me 50 cents more. Yeah, you got 50 cents. That's not 50 cents, only 50 cents more. No, she said 50 cents a week, not an hour. Forget about that one. I was not long there over there, you know, and next door, I go in the machine shop, they hired me right away as a late machine worker. So that was my first job here. Yeah, and then after further I get as a draftsman, and then later on as a designer, you know. No, the designer, and then that was my finished job later on before I retired. So somebody else.
When you were welding, what was it? What were you making? What were your project when you did the welding? What were you actually making?
Oh, that was a stainless steel pipe. They have to brace around.
Okay.
Bracing. You know, you could welding it too, stainless steel, but if you have no high pressure in the pipe, you can brace it. This is good to know. Yes?
What kind of propaganda did they use in Germany during the war?
Propaganda? They used only good propaganda. The bad one that you don't know, you never heard the bad one. Yes, sir.
Did you ever have time for romance?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I was too busy. No. And then in this time, you know, that was everything was hectic, you know. So there was nothing there. Even in the Heimatland, you know, when the soldier was on vacation for a couple of days, there was no dancing. They said, you know, so Ado said, you know, if the soldier fighting on the front, you know, the people in the homeland, you know, should have to dance, you know. So no dancing, no music, you know. That is, you know. Yes, sir.
Were you a fighter because you wanted to be, or because you had to be?
No, I wanted. So that is the reason I volunteered to the Air Force. If they drafted me, then they put me there where they want. But if I volunteer, they have to put me there where I want.
Wow. Okay.
So I get the fight out of part of that. You know. So, but besides, I have the A, B, C, and 3 and gliding the 2 anyway. You know, so I fly a glider cross country. You know, around probably so 100 miles cross country. I mean, if you fly 100 miles with the sail glider, you can fly. You know, you have to know the air, the thermic. You know, you have to look for everything. You know, you stay in the air. You know, to get the right wind. You know. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Did you do any flying after you came to the United States?
Yeah, I started right away. In Germany, there was flying forbidden for a while. And then after a couple of years, you could sail gliding. So I started right away sail gliding again. And then when I was coming in the United States, I made right away the pilot license, and then I flew the Cessna 150. So just joining, you know, just flying around to enjoy it. And I started flying, I did flying until, I think, 3 years ago, then I stopped. It's not fun anymore, you know. If the fun is gone, you know, so better you stop, you know. Yes, someone else.
What was your age and rank at the end of the war?
Pardon me?
How old were you when the war was over?
17.
Still 17.
Yeah, the war was over May 8. On May 28, I was 18. I just the rest around the corner.
Just a kid.
Somebody else?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
As Berlin was falling, what were the secondary units of the Red Army like? What was their attitude when they came in? I mean, I've read that there was, you know, a bit of savagery there. How did they act toward you guys when they got there?
You mean from the Russian side?
The Russian side.
I don't know. I can tell you only from the German side.
Well, I mean, in your view, how were they?
Oh, the Russian.
Right.
Yeah, I tell you what. The Russian behaved terrible against civilians, especially women.
Yeah.
You know, terrible. Although I don't want to go in details. I wrote some small details in my book too. That was enough.
How much is the book?
$20.
Marvelous.
Yeah. So you can take one or you can buy two, you know, or three. Makes no difference to me, you know.
2 for $40.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it takes a certain spirit, even as a young man, you know, and I flew as a young man, and sometimes you even think you're invincible. But just to kind of put it in perspective, after the war, you know, Germany became East Germany and West Germany. And East Germany was controlled substantially by the communists, by the Russians, several years before finally the East German military took over it. But Hans was raised by his grandparents. They lived in East Germany. They survived the war, but Hans was in West Germany, over here. So you would think he didn't have much opportunity to go across, especially after the war when the Russians were so very strong and anti-German doing anything. Now he's 18 years old. Could sneak across the border anytime he wanted. You know, a little secret place. Go, sneak across, go visit his grandparents for a few days, sneak back. You just wouldn't think about doing that later on. But no, it's pretty daring. After the war, industry was decimated again, especially in East Germany, because anything that was there that the Russians could take, they dismantled and took it to Mother Russia. They used to have 2 train tracks set for routes. So one would always be going one way, one would always be going the other way, and they said, oh, you only need one set, we'll just take you away. So there were a couple of instances where he was snuck into East Germany trying to get towards Berlin and waiting for days at a train station, and people were just saying, well, it might come, it might not come, we don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty rough after the war.
Yeah. So, some else?
Other questions?
Some other questions? Come on, people.
Double over there. I know.
Oh, here we go. Yes.
Okay.
Have you been back to Germany since?
Oh, yes. I was, my wife and I, she's in the tent, was going back every 2-3 years to Germany. But now I am in the state, I never get back right now. You know, so I stay here, you know. So to fly from here to Germany, 8 hours. So the last time I was flying to Germany or coming backwards from Frankfurt here, that it took me 24 hours. It was, auf Wiedersehen. That was too much, you know. I said, I can't do it anymore. You know, I'm not going over there anymore. I like to, but I can't do it. Now I stay here now. Yeah, someone else.
Another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever experience any hardship or discrimination for being a German soldier once you were here in America?
No. But I tell you so far, when I was at a job as a welder or as a machinist, fine, nobody bothered me. But so soon I get office work, you know, as a designer, it took sometimes one couple of weeks I was out. The shortest one was in New Jersey. I forgot the name of the company. I was hired as a draftsman. It was the first draftsman. And I started 8 o'clock. And about 10 o'clock, the manager come to me. He said, "Look, Hans, I make a mistake, I have to let you go. But you get paid for the whole day, because I get order from my boss." That was the shortest one, and sometimes later it took a couple of weeks. No, I have it. That I was lucky that I have four occupations. I could go welder, machinist, draftsman, engineer. Later on, engineer, later on. So that was my luck. Otherwise, that would be a little bit hard then. That was in the beginning. You heard it always in the television, radio, the Germans, Holocaust, something like that. Bad German. That was what happened. But I get through it. That's someone else.
Charging extra for autographs?
Pardon me?
No. Charging extra for autographs.
No. Okay.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. If you'd like to get an expansion of it, what it's like for us, it's right here in this book. That's $20.